DNA Video Productions is a full-service video producer with a fleet of drones, 4K, and HD cameras, as well as a crew of video operators. We handle commercial and residential real estate videos, as well as events for promotional purposes. We create book trailers, both live-action and running stills, music videos, and website videos. We also film series shorts for online distribution and are currently involved in filming a political parody. We specialize in low-cost movie making. Call DNA Video Productions at 941-748-6865 or visit our website at www.dnavideoproductions.com. That's www.dnavideoproductions.com. Thank you. Our sponsor this month is Published, an affiliate of Village Voices. Published offers all author services from writing tips, critiques, manuscript evaluations, and editing, as well as tips to help you become published. If you prefer to self-publish, purchase the step-by-step book on publishing through Amazon, or purchase services a la carte, from formatting to creating custom covers, or even tips to gather endorsements. The staff is headed by 2 professional writers. After your books are published, either trade paper, electronically, or both, purchase marketing tips, web services, book trailers, or turn your book into an audiobook. Publish provides all your writing, publishing, and marketing needs. So give them a call at 941-748-6865. Contact them online at dgould497@aol.com or go to the website at www.publishedavillagevoices.webs.com. Welcome to Culture Coast. The intro you just heard was by Al Musitano, and today we are interviewing artist and author Jacquline Paske Gill. Hi, Jacquline. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
You're an artist and an author, but when you first knew you had some artistic leanings, how old were you?
Probably 7 or 8. I drew a lot as a kid. I have 2 sisters and a brother, and we all used to be very creative with drawing and watching cartoons. My dad also was an artist. He used to tell us stories when we were kids. Of course, they were always scary, and they always happened to him. And he would draw, like, the things in the story that he saw. For instance, there was a story I remember where he was in a quarry with this friend of his, and they were swimming, and there was some type of quarry monster that chased them, and so he would draw the monster.
A quarry monster. Wow.
And we'd all be like, "Oh, this is the scariest thing! It looked like that. Did that really happen? Yes, it did." And I just got away.
And you never went into the quarry, right? That was the whole purpose of the story. Don't go in the quarry.
He was very creative, and the neighbor kids like to come and hear his stories, and I think that's where the whole storytelling thing started, because we used to make little comics when we were kids, and we would draw the squares and make up stories with little characters. And my brother was probably the influence for the comics, because he loves comic books and collects them, and now he's a graphic designer. And he's my graphic designer for my books. So eventually my dream was to have cartoons on TV. That's what I was going to do. I have about between 60 and 100 comic-styled stories, picture stories I still kept in a thing that now my son likes to read. He's 9 and thinks they're great. I think they're so generic now that I'm an adult, but it was where I started. You know, it shows from an 7-year-old's point of view, adventures happening with pictures. And then eventually I went to art school because I knew I wanted to do something with books or TV. And when I got out of art school, I taught preschool for a little while just to be around kids, and I started doing murals. I don't know how it started. I think it's because I used to draw with the kids a lot, and maybe they took drawings home, but then the parents approached me and started asking if I had ever done murals, and I said, well, I haven't, but it's probably not much different than doing a painting. And so I started out with one of the moms. She has a little thrift store in the Gulf Gate area in Sarasota, and I did at the front of her store, and then I did her kids' rooms, and it was word of mouth from there. So for 10 years I did murals.
So did you find them a little bit different from just doing drawings?
Yes.
I mean, here you are doing little comic squares, and all of a sudden a mural. It's huge space. How do you make that proportional difference?
Well, I was afraid at first because I was painting on somebody's wall. It was permanent. I always made sure that they had that original wall paint because you can't erase. And I got a little more confident as I did each one. I liked it because each job was totally different. It was fun. It was big. I learned a lot about paints and mixing the colors and things that I used in art school, and I did that all the way up until maybe 2 years after I had my son. 2 to 3 years I used to bring him along in the little infant seat until he was mobile, and I kind of couldn't do it as much anymore.
Because he might get into the paint himself and it'd be on the carpet and the walls.
Yes, and I had to lug all the paints to each house, so it kind of slowed down a little there, and then by the time he went to kindergarten, I started working on my stories, and then I met a person who was interested in what I did and introduced me to Create Space, which Amazon owns, and I started self-publishing, but the very first book I came out with was actually through Peppertree, Sarasota's local publisher. I approached them with a story that I had just done a cover to. It was a conceptual drawing. I did it in college based on my childhood, and it's the cover of my Monster in the Basement. It's about my sister and I when we...
Do you also do illustrate for the Peppertree? For other artists?
I do. I've just been hired now by one person.
You said that your father is an artist. Was that his full-time job, or was it just a hobby?
He went to art school and decided it was not a logical career and dropped out of art school.
We were told that growing up. I mean, for decades and decades, it's been something that was like, you do that in your spare time. That's not how we support ourselves.
Yeah, so he didn't do it. And when I decided I wanted to go to art school, he discouraged me from it completely. And he even asked me, if you never get a job doing art, would you still want to go to art school? And I said, yes, I want to go to art school. And I went and got my bachelor degree, not knowing if I'd ever get a job in it.
You'd be at least able to teach it, though.
Right, and I was doing it on the side, really, 4 years, because I always had another job while I did murals, and even doing the books, I still have another part-time job just to keep my steady income, but it's kind of my love and my passion, and if I could do it full-time, I would love it. But
so you knew that from an early age, which is something that's very, very lucky, and a lot of people don't do that. They put it aside, just like your father suggested you do, and I've had some become chemists or doctors, lawyers, whatever, and they don't get to do their passion until they retire. And it's
right.
like, what are we doing that we're stifling that when it's
right.
something that should be exalted and explored?
It's a very competitive field,
It is, it is, and yet it isn't, because talent is so unique and individual in each person that, yeah, there's competition, but if your stuff is unique and different, then...
Right.
It's really, there's no competition because nobody else is going to do what you do.
You're right. There's a lot of stuff out there, good and bad. It's just a lot of stuff is out there. So
yes.
you kind of have to
Well, the
really
same thing with the
yourself.
writing.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing with writing. I
yes.
mean, there's good writing and there's really bad writing. And as long as you just keep improving and yours is good, you may not rise to the top, but you're at least going to be able to make a living if you're good.
Yes.
So that's what we're really trying to get our audience to know, is that there's many paths there,
Mm-hmm.
but if you choose your own path and you stick to it and you really believe in it and just keep going, you're probably going to be able to survive.
I think
You may not excel, but you're going to survive.
Right, and the more you work at it, I think
Doing
it actually
something you love.
motivates you.
And doing something you love.
Yes.
You get up in the morning and you actually care about
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing. So it's a beautiful thing. All right, now, you grew up with this artistic family, and they may have tried to discourage you at the end of your education, but for the most part, they were really helpful, and
Yes.
everybody helped you do that. So your maiden name is Paske,
Mm-hmm.
and it's Jacqueline Paske, now Gill,
Mm-hmm.
because you're married. How long have you been married?
This is my 14th year of marriage.
Very good.
It's in October.
Now, have you always been in Florida? Were you born here?
We moved here when I was 10 years old. My dad's job transferred us here. So my dream was to go to Ringling. And when I was going to Sarasota High, I got accepted into the VPA program at Booker. And then my dad's job transferred us out of state in high school.
No.
And I was heartbroken because I wanted to get a scholarship. That was the whole plan. And so I ended up going to the College of Visual Arts in St. Paul because my mom's sister lived outside the Twin Cities. And
Oh,
I had
please tell
family
me
there.
that they didn't move to
No.
Minneapolis.
No, they actually moved to Appleton, Wisconsin, which is
It's
much
just as
better.
bad.
But they were 6 hours from there, and
Oh, it's so cold
Yeah.
after you've been in Florida. Oh my gosh.
so we lived there about 5 or 6 years. I finished college and came back to Florida.
Yeah,
So
and so from what you say, so did your brother.
my brother never did move up there. He was older and was in the service in Texas and came back to Florida when he got out of the service and stayed here. So when I came back, I actually lived with him for a little bit to get back on
Which
my
is
feet.
why you're still in this area,
Yes.
not somewhere else in Florida.
Mhm.
So you
Yeah.
had some place to come to.
Yeah.
That's good. So are you two the only ones down here?
My parents are back down here. When my dad retired, they came back. So they could at least be with 2 of their kids. Because I have a sister in Portland, Oregon, and my other sister stayed in Wisconsin. She met her husband there. So
Ugh.
she's sad because she
Just-
loved it here, but she's...
Well, she'll be able to talk him into coming down here sooner
Eventually.
or later. It'll happen. So you're down here, and you returned to Florida, and you met your husband here?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did.
Everything's fitting together, and you also got into doing your picture books. We mentioned the Pepper Tree Press was your first publication, publisher. So how did that come about? You had the comic strips all your life and the little comic figures.
I didn't know how to get it started. I was looking up ways to publish it, and then somebody contacted me, I think through Facebook actually, and I met with him, and showed me Create Space, and saw that cover for The Monster in the Basement, the image of the kids at the top of the stairs, and said, this is the story looks really interesting, what is that about? And I said, well, it's a conceptual illustration showing how when we were little kids, we were afraid of the basement, and my brother used to scare us. If we went down there, he'd shut the lights off, close the door, and we'd scream, So I made a conceptual illustration of what we imagined looking down the stairs and a monster peeking around the corner who's really my brother. And he said, I would love to see that as a children's book. You should make a children's book out of that. And at the time, I was working on the other 4 seasons myself through Amazon. And so in a weekend, I wrote the story, and it was just a rhyming story of what it came to be.
Now, do you always do rhyming stories?
I don't. I have a whole dog series I haven't even published yet that my son helped me write because he's an only child and our dogs have always been his siblings. So we kind of created stories, and they don't rhyme at all. They're just
a lot of
children's
times they
stories.
don't. Children's stories don't have to rhyme. They just have to have a moral.
But that one was kind of a fun one, and I saw it in verse.
And we
what was
all have
happening.
been afraid of something when we were little, whether it was a spider or a monster.
Well, the boys seem to enjoy it more than the girls because this book is probably still my bestseller. The story, the idea, monsters are pretty popular still with boys or girls, but boys just seem to think it's more fun to be scared than girls. I have a son, my brother has twin boys, and they go hide and say, Uncle Tim couldn't find us, and they enjoy being scared, and we hated it. We would go tell on my brother, he's scaring us, and then he'd get in trouble, and we didn't like it at all. So it's so different with boys, but we did like the scary stories my dad told us, though, that he said were real. Those were exciting, but I guess we just didn't like being chased or scared.
You didn't want it to be you.
Right.
It was okay if it was your dad. He was the one being scared,
It was
not
fun
you.
to hear about it. So maybe that's why this is a big seller, too, is because the kids like to hear about what
somebody
happens.
else being scared, not
Yes.
them. And it makes them feel like they're not alone. I think
Right.
that's a big part of it, because I think we all have our big bad somewhere in the background when we're little. And
that's why I had to end it not scary, to let them know there was no monster. It's
Yeah.
just my brother, and that you can be relieved at the end of the story, and it makes it more fun.
yeah, and they know that they're safe and secure.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing. All right, so what else do you have planned for books, children's books?
Doing this, I got into the book signings, and it was really nice because I networked. I met different authors that decided they wanted to hire me, and
To do their illustrations.
Right, and that's kind of what I eventually wanted to do. I always wanted to do my own stories, but I wanted to illustrate. I thought about being a story illustrator for movies, that do those type of illustrations. Nobody ever sees the originals, but you do the concept of the story.
Do you have to live in Hollywood to get in those positions?
I don't know. I thought about doing an internship with Disney, and then I met my husband, so it went another way. But
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we were diverted like that, but I almost think you'd have to live in Hollywood to become an illustrator for the big production, the big
Yeah.
companies. they do teams, and definitely that would be a way to go. But possibly Orlando.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's quite a trek. You might have to actually move there, and then you wouldn't be near the ocean, which is...
It still kind of went in the direction it was supposed to anyways. It just ended up being books, and it was worth doing all of those book signings we'd sit at for hours trying to sell their books, because I met other authors and then they hired me. So it's nice to know now I'm doing this on the side as a second income for other people, but I can still work on my own time, because I obviously make more money being hired to illustrate other people's books than do my own. I do my own because I love it.
Right, and sooner or later, possibly you'll have one of those hits, but that's really hard to do. It's a very difficult market to break into.
It is.
And if you work for if you ever do get hired by the big publishers, they don't let you do your own pictures.
They don't. They match you up with another author and kind of take care of all of it for you.
Yeah,
you just get a call.
You're the author of this story, and they go, oh, well, here's your illustrator. And you're like, no, I have no, we don't want your pictures. We just want your story. We'll do...
We were taught that in college, actually. They said that they don't like to have the same author and illustrator.
They don't. They don't allow it. Madonna did not do her own illustrations. So... I don't know why they do that, and it's unusual. Now, I have also heard that Amazon CreateSpace is got their own imprints now. Do they have one for children's books yet?
Yes, that's what I used for my seasonal books.
All right, now here's a question. Have you contacted them about being an illustrator for other people's books? Because
I have not.
That might be an outlet where you could find more work than you could handle.
I haven't even thought about doing that.
Now, how much do you get per picture? I know this is, there's a range.
There is a range, and I generally, I charge $100 per page, $50 for spot illustrations. The cover should be $150. I have researched it online, and I'm really on the low end.
Yes,
but
I know.
The way I look at it is I'm illustrating for self-publishers, so I can't imagine charging more for someone who's self-publishing. Now, if I were to get hired for a big publisher,
it would be more,
then
because
I would have
they're
to be
going to get
comparable,
more.
right?
Yes.
And for me, that's perfect, because I'm not too expensive for a self-publisher to hire.
And that's exactly what we do. It's not because we don't think we're worth more, but we do charge less because they are for self-publishers. These people, most of them, are not going to make all of their money back.
Right.
But they're doing it because they really want to get that out, the cover out there. So it's a catch-22. You don't want to undersell yourself, but at the same time, they can't afford you.
Right. And it's really hard to not spend more time per page than you want. I've realized that. I try to kind of watch my time so that I'm getting paid for what I should be, but I tend to really get involved, and I have to know when to stop or when it's finished, because I want to keep working on it. It could never be done. You can keep improving, but I try to set a limit and to where I'm happy with it, and then go over it with the author. And if they need improvements or changes, then I'll do that after. So
you give them way more than what they're actually paying for, but at the same time, and that makes you feel good, because you know you did a good job. But
well, it's a product that's going out there with my name on it too. So if someone's looking through the book and they see this is the illustrator, you don't want to do something you didn't finish, or does it look finished? You want it to be good quality,
right? Because that might be your next. That might be your next job.
Yes, and I really enjoy working with the authors too, because I've found that some of them, before they've done this, they were writers, wrote their story, and they learn something from it too. When we sit down together and you go over the illustrations, the visual of what they're saying, and you talk about with them how you want it to look, they don't ever have to look at it that way before, and then now they're all of a sudden having to go, oh, yeah, I think I want this character over here, and I want him facing this way, and I want him to look like this expression on his face, because they didn't think about that. They just envisioned the story, and now I have to put it out visually on paper, and I need to get what they're imagining out on paper.
Now, do you start on paper? You don't start on computer?
I do all of it on paper, and then I scan it in, and I edit it, fix things, give textures, things like that I do on the computer. I still need to do that aesthetic, hands-on drawing. It's a handicap to draw on the computer for me, but once my drawings are in there, then I can work with them. So yes, I do.
So what kind of program do you use for your
Photoshop, and then I have a knockoff program on my other computer that I also use, and I kind of use them together as Photoshop elements. You know, there's the two of them together, and you can do slightly different things in each. I had to kind of self-teach myself, and then I have one of those Wacom drawing pads that connects into your computer with a pen.
I have seen those.
They're
very cool.
Really nice. So because then once you get your artwork up there, you put the pen to the pad, and it shows on the computer screen, just like the mouse does, the cursor where you're drawing and how much pressure you put on doesn't really matter as much as the line. It's interesting. I've learned a lot more, I think, than I learned in art school.
Wow.
Because they teach you the basics per subject, and you don't know where you're going to go with that. And now that I'm using it for this, I've really had to teach myself how to use it for what I'm doing.
So what do they teach us in art school? Tell us.
Well, they don't teach us as much as I thought they would. I mean, you learn figure drawing, of course, design, painting. Of course, computers a lot more now than when I was in school. I went to college in the 90s, and I only had to learn the basics in computers.
Computers were still pretty new.
They were.
It's amazing how far we've come, how quickly we've come there. I mean, look what's happened in the publishing business just in the last 5 years. 5 years ago, nobody self-published unless they were rich. But
that's true.
Now, everybody self-publishes.
Yes,
it
the
takes
digital photography, everything's changed. We were still in the dark room in college. And
I have to say, it's all due to Amazon. I have to, because without Amazon, people would still be paying far too much for publishing. They wouldn't be able to do it, and they can't get into the big houses anymore unless they have to have a platform. And if you don't have a platform, which means, are you rich and a celebrity? Mm-hmm. Does the whole world know you? Then you have a platform. Or you were involved in something that was nationally known. Say you were a shooting victim in one of the big,
attention.
Yeah, that it has to be one of those people. You have to have a platform. It has to be a platform, and that makes it impossible to get into the big companies. So they shut the door on all these people, and Amazon opened it for everybody. CreateSpace and Kindle. It was just really amazing. There were a few success stories, and the whole business has changed. So yes, it's changed. The computers have changed that. They've changed your art. Now, where do you see it going? Your path going in the future?
Well, I like that I'm illustrating for other authors right now. I really enjoy doing that. If I was doing that full time, I would be happy just doing that. I like doing my own books as well, but I really just wanted to do my books because I guess there's stories you want to share. It's neat to know that there's other children in other homes reading my stories and looking at my pictures and being entertained by them. To me, that's really exciting. I sold a print on Etsy to somebody in Singapore. I thought, how neat is that my print is hanging in somebody's house in Singapore? So that feeling is really fulfilling, to know you leave something behind. Even if it's not famous, other people were touched by something that you did that they enjoyed, and that to me is what I guess I'm trying to do.
Do you know how they found you?
I have a site on Etsy. If you've ever been on Etsy, it's it's gotten huge also. You almost get lost on there now and can't get found. Because
Pinterest and Etsy are both visual more than they are,
yes,
more than Facebook and
yes,
MySpace. Those were just social medias. Etsy and Pinterest are all about the visual.
Right. If somebody's looking for something specific, you're going to be found much quicker. But otherwise, you just kind of get lost unless you keep renewing yourself on there, keep posting things, which I don't do. It's a side thing for me. I just like to have it connected to my website. If people are looking for other things from me, if they're interested, they can find it there.
I think we all need a social media specialist at least 1 hour a day.
We do.
I don't have time to do it either, and you're absolutely right. And there are social media specialists out there. They just need to, they need to find us, and we need to find them, and
it's a good way to
have a reasonable price as you and I do, because the people can't afford what they're actually worth.
It does help with the marketing, definitely, and some people are very good at it, and if you're not, you still have that opportunity to use it, and it's getting your stuff out there. It's just being found. That's the challenge.
So for visual arts, you think Etsy and Pinterest are probably the best right now?
Yeah, I think Etsy's gotten gigantic. Almost everybody that's in the art world has heard of it, and if you talk to somebody who's not in the art world and you tell them about it, they're just, really, what is that? Fascinated, and then they go look at it. You can buy anything on there that artists made.
So do you see any others up and coming, other sites that are similar to that'll be big in the future?
I don't know of any right now, but when
you're
I
keeping
hear
your
about
ears
them,
open for it, so you're riding the wave on the next one.
Anything to get your stuff out there is what you have to do, I guess.
Yeah, the marketing is all part of it. You don't just get to wear the artist cap or the author's cap anymore. You have to market yourself.
That's the hardest part too. I'm not a good marketer. I'm not a good salesperson. When I had to take the classes for that in college, just how to sell yourself, your portfolio, I think that you aren't experienced enough in college yet, or have that life experience to know
Or the
you
confidence.
need it. Yes. Or you get out of college thinking, well, this is not going to be hard. I'm just going to do this is what they told me to do, and
they're going to love me. They're going to love me.
Yeah, it's very unrealistic. They don't really prepare you for that. So you go out and you do what you're supposed to do, and then you're rejected, and you're wondering, why is this so hard? Well, there's so much competition out there, and you don't have the money as a college graduate to hire an agent to market your stuff. You just don't have that ability to do it, and if you're not the type of person who does it yourself, you struggle a little, which I didn't have.
So now artists need agents, like authors needed agents.
Pretty much, if you want to get yourself out there now because of the competition.
It's an interesting concept. Might be a job opening for those who are good at that kind of thing. If anybody out there is listening, we could use some artist agents to get us into the books and into the line of art that we want to go into, and get us out there.
You're kind of doing that by having the books here. Really, that helps.
Well, this is a place for Florida authors only.
Yeah,
my
helps them.
gallery it's a book and art gallery, but this is all about Florida authors, and it's a place for them to have book signings and market themselves, and people come here knowing that, hey, that's where the Florida authors are.
Yeah, it's unique. It's not
I couldn't compete as a regular bookstore. Bookstores are going down, and I know it, but this is a niche little market, and it's about local. Yeah. So that's where we're hoping people will fit in. It's been websites. Where are you located on the internet for people around the world to see you?
Well, my website is paskepaintings.com.
Spell that for us.
Paske paintings. It's all one word. And when you go to that website, then there's several links to my books selling on Amazon, my artwork selling on Etsy. I have a blog that tells you any events going on where I might be. I haven't been doing as many of them lately now that I'm getting hired to illustrate books. I'm busier doing that, but I try to get out there a few times a year just to do any of those events going on for book signings and art events. So that would be on there. I try to keep it updated so if anyone goes to it, they can read about what's going on. And
spend a couple hours a week doing that?
Not anymore. No, it's probably like a couple hours a month. But when I was doing a lot of book signings, I was on it constantly because I had to let people know what was going on. And now I've backed off from the book signings now that I'm doing more illustrating other people's books.
You are finishing up on the 2 books that you're currently working on, so you may have some time to get back into that now? No, you've got other ones lined up behind it?
Yes, I luckily have 3 authors right now interested in having me do more books up through next year. I'm finishing my 4th season book, which is fall, and then I'll have a set of the 4 seasons I'm doing, which I don't know if I'll even get it done by this fall because I'm doing these other books. And then that whole series of dog stories my son wants to do with me will probably be on hold for a year or 2, but we have it.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I do that same thing. Well, thank you so much for being on Culture Coast, and I wish you the best of luck with both of your future endeavors, the writing and the artistic work, and let's see where it goes.
Thank you so much.
You're not done with your path yet.
No, I'm not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nightmares. Frightful visions during the night, causing terror and loss of sleep. Daymares. Frightful visions during the day, causing fear and paranoia. Gothmares. Gothic visions that can happen anytime, causing horror and disgust. But sometimes they offer answers. Read Gothmares if you dare. Gothmares, a young adult novel by Al Musitano, available on Amazon and fine bookstores everywhere.
Village of the Arts, the largest artist colony in the state of Florida, located on 42 acres, includes artists, homes, galleries, gardens, and restaurants featuring handcrafted gifts, fine art sculptures, painting, photography, enviro art, healing arts, books, mystics, and musical variety. A few of the galleries are unique in their offerings. Village Voices specializes in books and art created exclusively by Florida residents. The Dancing Crane Gallery offers fine art, custom jewelry, and unique innovative art. The Village Mystic offers all things metaphysical: meditation, massage, mediums, aromatherapy, psychics, shamans, Reiki healing, and the gem mine, where you can mine for your own personal treasure. Yoga Arts offers classes or one-on-one coaching. Musicians and bands can be found throughout the area. Many of the artists and musicians offer classes. Restaurants and bakeries provide respite for the weary and magic for the foodies. Visit during the first Friday Art Walk and stroll through the shops and galleries enjoying free appetizers, wine, music, and demonstrations. For hours and information, please visit the website at www.villageofthearts.com.